afternoon, beautiful people. I am back from Florida. Got a little tan going on here, a little burn. See my eyes. uh, uh, do me a favor, like and subscribe. Share if you would. Welcome to my show today. I have a guy I'm giving a shout out to. His name is Derek Harris. He builds pools, liner install, decks, landscaping, mulching, power washing, painting, tree removal, fencing, gutter cleaning, and cleaning services. You reach Derek Harris at 812-318-5530 to all your needs for your house needs, pool needs, any needs that you need. So a shout out to Derek. Got to meet him today. Good kid. Former Bloomington North football player. Got to talk to him. And it really, I was trying to figure out what content I wanted to do today. What to do, because it's the off season for fans. Fans, it's the off season for the coaches and players. It's not the off season. They're doing their workouts right now, getting themselves, for the players, bigger, stronger, faster, agility. Getting their bodies right, and it's important that as a fan of IU football for 30 years, like I said, going to tons of shows, doing the coaches shows, going to a ton of games, going to games out of town and stuff. We have to remember that these kids are still teenagers. A lot of them, some are in their 20s, but mostly teenagers. And we got to respect them and give them some space. Let them do their thing, and try to build them up to something better. We had an amazing season. We went undefeated. And never in my lifetime would I thought that would happen, but the pressure that involves in that, mentally, physically, emotional pressure that the players will feel now is immense. So, with psychology and all for these players, we have to support them. When they're out to eat for dinner with the friends or other players or girlfriends, whatever, guy friends, whatever they're doing, give them some peace. Those of you who don't know, I drive Uber at night, little side gig there. I'm not working. I do Uber mostly for fun and support my fishing addiction mostly, and add some money to the banking account. And I see some players out and about, that they're coming back from practice, or I've had them in my Uber. I've had several of the players in my Uber going home after practice or going to dinner to have something to eat together. Offensive linemen, I've had cornerback. I've had all different players in there, all the way from stars all the way down to the practice squad players, which every one of them are important. Oh, my point I'm getting at is it's important as fans of IU football here in our community of Bloomington that we give these kids some space to be kids. It's something that's forgotten now. It is. Honestly, I was working last night, and there was an IU football player that looked like he just got back from practice or workouts or whatever, and there was like 15 kids around him. I understand from being a former player I was hockey. No, I wasn't. I did football in high school, but I didn't go past that. And but I was a hockey player, and I was in a position where fans would come up to you when you're trying to eat dinner uh, with that with people and girlfriends or whatever, and they would come up and want to talk to you, and quite frankly, at times it was annoying. I just it was you want to separate your what you do on the field and what you do in life and the football lifestyle. It's good for these kids to get a break. You know what I mean? To get a mental break from the pressure that's put on them. You know, it's important for them to get their grades, you know, do the training, do get ready for the season and so on. And I'm kind of rambling right now, but I just thought it was important for me to bring this up because I coached a little football, a little hockey there for a while, and I mean it was high school and below, and you know so I wasn't at this level of coaching. I you know I just want to make a point that let these kids be kids. Let them go out to eat for dinner and not ask for pictures or selfies or anything like that. Just let them be kids, especially when we're coming off. Sorry, sorry, a little cough there. We're coming off this historic season from IU football, unbelievable season, and a lot of these kids uh, are going to have even more pressure on them now. So we have to, we as our inner community, Bloomington, as everybody knows, Bloomington's a city, but inside that city is a town where everybody knows everybody by one person. It's so true, so true. And when these kids are out to eat locally, and of course, they go out other places to eat also out of Bloomington to eat. But as fans, let's give them some freedom, and I love talking about IU football with my riders and Uber and stuff, and when I get players in there, I try my best not to talk about football, and sometimes I get caught up in doing that, and you know I I shouldn't do that. I drive these kids around, and they're going to go, get grab something to eat somewhere or something like that. I've had a lot of the athletes, not just in football. I've had volleyball players in there, the women's volleyball team. I've had softball players in there, track and field. I just put on my Uber thing that official Uber driver for Indiana Athletics, but that'd be kind of funny. But no, I try to give these kids space to be kids, to be young men and young women, to, to, to enjoy themselves and get separate from the stress of the game because you guys, there's enormous stress on these players to produce not only in the football field, but to produce in the classroom and and to make themselves and their families better off before they got to our school. And a perfect example is this is I'm not really a basketball guy. I'll have to admit, I'm not a basketball guy. I never have been. I have enjoyed to go see a few basketball games, but a couple of years ago, or actually 2 years ago, we as a Bloomington society really hammered on the IU basketball team because they didn't perform to our expectations. And now it's starting to do that now with the IU basketball team. Coach DeVries, it's his first year. Give the guy a break. Let him get his people in here. He had to rebuild a whole roster. And as a coach and the players, there's no need for us to give them outside pressure. There's not. Our expectations for these kids, these athletes, student athletes, we no matter what sport it is at IU, we give enormous pressure on these kids to perform at the ultimate level, and we put them under a microscope on everything that they do as fans, and we really need to separate ourselves from the football or athletic side and the personal side. It's just, I don't know. I'm kind of pissed off in a way because I see this stuff online of harassing Coach DeVries and the basketball team. What Coach Sig did when he got here is unprecedented in all of college sports and even professional sports. It's unprecedented, and for all the sports, we start giving these pressures on these kids, and we don't need to, you know, as a society for us. I mean, there's times when as a fan or a former player, coach or whatever, you have to speak out to a coach, to light a fire under their butts. Uh, you really do. It's well known that my dad did that with his "It's a Business" comment, well, over like 745,000 views, or almost a million views on that for Coach Allen, trying to give Walt Bell a light under his ass. That's a different situation. It's trying to get, you know, light a fire under a coach's butt. But we have to remember that those coaches and stuff, they have families, and they they need they need that privacy too. The coaches do when they're out to dinner with their family and stuff. It's nice. It's nice. I usually do when I'm in that situation. If I see a player or coaches of any athletics at IU, I just nod at them and say, hey, like that. That that's all you need to be satisfied with that. Trying to get pictures with them, selfies. I know it ups your game and stuff like that on all the social media platforms. But we have to really think that these kids, a lot of them aren't even fully developed into young men and young women yet at their age. They're not, and we put the stress on them to do all these great things, no matter what sport they're in. So I just want to do I want to do that as a quick segment for today. Is when you see people out at dinner, coaches, players, no matter what athletic sport it is, just let them be be themselves. Let them joke around. Let them get some stress off. Now, I'm not saying like the alcohol thing or anything like that. I'm just saying, like, if they're out to dinner, having something to eat, drinking a soda, you know, just let them do their thing. Let them get a break from the game for a while, no matter what their sport is. Okay, so now I got rid of that rant because it was in my mind. It really was. I was down in Florida last week, and I had the opportunity to run into a ton of people talking about Indiana football. And it got me thinking, back years ago, I would wear my Indiana football stuff, my Indiana just Indiana stuff in general, and no one would ever really want to talk to me about it. But now I'm going through the airports, in Orlando, going out to eat at a dinner at Sunset uh, Bar and Grill down there in Cape Canaveral, Florida. Great venue, great place. You should check it out sometime. Um, if you're ever in that area, I strongly suggest you go there and watch the sun go down because it's absolutely beautiful. I have some beautiful pictures from that. But my point is, I got to meet some people there, and a couple of people, and that really loved to talk to. There was a guy an older gentleman. He's probably in my dad that age range and my father, and he was telling me about a story about growing up a couple of blocks down from the Signettis, and then about Franco's coaching with Coach Signetti Senior. You know, it, and what I absolutely loved when I was seeing this and talking with these people is that we're proud of Indiana football again, where I've been proud for them forever, as long as I can remember. Like I said, 25 years, 30 years, I've been watching the IU football and going to games and stuff. Where my team was like Florida State and Syracuse and stuff like that. I always loved Florida State football, but I've always been a fan of IU football. I've always enjoyed going to the games and watching the players and the chess match that's involved with football. I love watching film. It's something that I do, and I do a lot of it, especially when the season starts coming together to watch different things on different teams. Players, what they're doing with their feet, their hands, their eyes, uh, and stuff like that. What zone they're in, what you know. I don't know. There's defensive schemes, offensive schemes, openings, offensive, defensive line, and hands coming off, and torso and stuff. But anyway, I'm kind of ranting now. Um, I'm gonna get into the recruiting here a little bit because 2027 recruiting class. I mean, we're the coaching staff and recruiting coordinators, and support staff are really working hard right now. You know, we have a ranking of 16 right now for 2027, and it's only going to go up. But when we I don't what I don't want to happen is this. We have these players coming in now that have all these stars, where our team in the last 2 years have been built on players that have a chip on their shoulder that it, weren't recruited out of high school, weren't uh, high valued recruits, if you would want to call them that. The 4 stars, 5 stars. We never had a 5 star at IU. Some 4 stars, and I don't want us to lose that edge. I think Coach Sig and the staff will do a great job at keeping them on the level. Um, sorry, but that's just we have some 4 stars and 5 stars, and we'll probably have more. We'll probably have more people in with a higher talent level starting to come into our program now. But one thing I don't want these young men, sorry, young men to do is to waste it. There is so much talented players out there that go unnoticed. on individual teams. Maybe it's because the team's record in football for high school level is not great. Um, the area that they live in, uh, recruiting wise, like for instance, there's this kid I saw a game of when I was up in Western New York and uh, south of Rochester, and there was this kid that was playing guard and defensive tackle. Big kid, great hands, great discipline, great hips and stuff like that. But so I typed him in and tried to look at if there's any schools looking at him. Not a single one. Now I could see if I was the coach, defensive line, offensive line coach, I could see that I could build on this kid. Now I don't know about his academics. I didn't, get that far into it. Um, and what kind of person he was, or how he was with his teammates. Some things that I would look for if I was scouting a person. I'd do a full background check on what how they are in the community and family and how they work out. When no one's looking, how they work at perfecting their craft. Now I didn't get into that kind of depth, but it just gets me thinking that there's players out there like we had on our roster the last 2 years that weren't recruited, and it just looking as a scout. I know that we I'm not a scout. I should say we. I know that scouts look for certain parameters for a player, and they give them the star quality of what they are. I have seen so many 4 stars and 5 stars, just not work out academically, personal, academically, or having problems outside of school. And it's important that Coach Sig and the support staff, the assistant coaches and all, remain in looking at someone's potential as a young player. You know, those players that will stay with your program, that will contribute to special teams until they get a chance. That's something that I I've always thought of building a roster. Uh, the building blocks of your program. It For me, I mean, the transfer portal now has changed everything. But for me, these players that are underrated at a school, no matter where they're at in this country, and now it's amazing to me that even other countries that play American football, that we look at these players as a whole on a team, and what kind of person they are, and how hard are they willing to work to get to the next step over these players that have pure athletic talent, out of this world athletic talent, that want to go to the NFL. It's good to have them players. I would like to say there's that we the only way you can compete now is to have that high star value per athlete, pure athletic players, specialized positions, and you know. But I've always been a guy that if I look at a player, I want to see what he's doing when it's not his spot. Like, for example, you know, I want to watch a player that, let's say a wide receiver, just a wide receiver. I'm more offensive, defensive line minded guy and linebackers. And I want to see what a guy does or a young man does when he's going downfield. You know, does the offensive lineman block at the second level? Does he continue down the field to help his players out, or does he just sit back and let it go? Or the linebacker, you know, does he play his position as a teammate and not as an individual? And I think it's really important that we find those kids because those kids who play with heart, and for the love of the game, tho- those players are priceless. They really are. You know, they're not here for the NIL money. They're not here for anything. They're here to get a degree, hopefully, and get to play on a football team and work their butts off. And hopefully, by their junior or senior year, they get the starting spot. You know, you gotta have that type of player, that player that was going to give you everything that he has every day. You know, the work ethic every day. And a lot of our players from last 2 years, and I'll even go back to Coach Allen's years, they did that. They gave them everything that they had to maximize their potential. Some perfect examples of that is like Isaiah Jones, Charlie Decker, Drew Evans. You know, these players. Fernando Mendoza is another example. Didn't really get recruited at all out of high school. You know, when we had so many of them on the roster last year, I could probably name 35, 40 of them off the top of my head. That meant something to this program that weren't on national TV. Like, it just, I just think that when you're building a team, a roster, that the players are team first, the brotherhood, having each other's back, and not wanting to think that it's all about them. It's about the team. And sometimes when you're getting those 5-star players, they're not what it's about. They want to know, how are you going to get me into the NFL? You know, and it's a part of life. It's a part of these young men's life, the dream to go into the NFL or even the Canadian Football League or whatever league they want to play at after they get done in high school. It's important that IU football in general, and this is a football podcast, still remembers those players that are not the typical 5-star players. You know what I mean? You know, it just that's the kind of kid I want. You know, there's a kid I've watched film on out there from Noblesville, Indiana, Caleb Johnson. Not getting a bunch of, doesn't have a bunch of stars, 6'5", 270, offensive tackle out of Noblesville, Indiana. And I went and watched some games and just because I wanted to see about this kid. What he does when it's not him. Like, what I mean by that is, say there's a running play to the right. Okay, and he's a left tackle. I'm just using an example here. I'm not saying what he is. But when he blocks downfield, he blocked his first person, went on to block the second person, and then went down to block the third person down the field. That's the kind of player that I want. I want that kind of player, you know, that the hardworking people, you know, and you know the the hog mollies out up front. Coach Bob Bostad does a great job at coaching these linemen, and every time I've heard from anybody that has played for him, has always said what a great guy he is and how much he teaches them about football and film, which is great. So these players that are unknown that you can get in here as a freshman, a true freshman, and build them up to be great by the time they're juniors and seniors. Hopefully, you can keep them around for that long with this modern transfer portal. But there's kids, you know, from all over this country that are no stars that may play on teams that are not being noticed because of their record. And if you find those players, like we have done in the last 2 years, we found those players that were just average Joe Schmoes, but were willing to learn, the process of being a great college football player. I don't care. I'd take 20 of those guys over a 5-star. I'm just saying that it's great to have a 5-star, but I want the guys with the heart and for the love of the game. I kind of went on a tangent there. I've been on this for a half hour now, but I just wanted to point that out because we as fans, the true Hoosier faithful, that we sat in the stands for 25, 30, 40, 50, how many years you've been an IU football fan? I mean, there was a 100-year-old woman at the game last year. So how long has she been an IU fan? But, we as fans have to help the program out any way we can. Going through an airport, you see a kid, has some high school gear on, an official visit placard or whatever, and just ask them, have you ever thought about Indiana football? I'm not recruiting. I'm not a recruiter. I can do that. But if things go south during a season, which, it can happen. You're a couple injuries away from a season going south, a couple of misplays, a missed catch, a run that was short in inches, that we as fans have to remember that what we did the last 2 years is not, how do I want to put this? We have to realize that what we've done the last 2 years has been amazing. But there is nothing wrong with winning record seasons, 9-3, 8-4. Then going to a bowl game. There's nothing wrong with that. We can't put the expectations on these players and teams, on our team at Indiana football, to go out and win a natty every year or go to the college football playoff every year. We like it, we love it, we want some more of it, but we as fans have to be there for our team as a fan and cheer them on, pack the rock, and cheer them on if they lose a game and not get down on them. It's important as fans that we do that because honestly, IU football, we didn't do that very much. I mean, we didn't give them the support that they needed for the fan base. As a fan base, There's many years, a lot of years over the years that I've sat in that stadium, and there was probably 3,000, 4,000 people. I remember when both sides were open. I remember Knoxville Park. I remember when everybody would be out in the parking lots partying and the grass lots partying, having a good time, and not even coming to the games. I don't want to go back to that, but I want to make sure that we don't exceed our expectations for a football program to the point where we lose the fan base because we didn't have a, you know, 11-1 season, 10-1 season, 9-3 season, 8-4 season. Because those are going to happen. The coach staff's a great coaching staff. Kids are great kids, but they're kids. So I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer here or whatever. What I'm just trying to say is that we have to make sure as fans that we support our team no matter what's going on. Whatever the outcome is, that we still support our team, and then next week we show up and pack the rock again and stand behind our team. It's the utmost important that we support this team any way we can. Now, a lot of us, the Hoosier faithful, we're not the millionaires or billionaires or whatever. We're just the average Joe working, 40 hours plus a week, supporting our families and spending money on tickets and game day and parking passes and all that. But remember those people. Remember those people that have sat in those stands for how many ever years that they stood in those stands every week, and that they had a game there and came in and watched the game with barely nobody there. The product on the field wasn't fantastic, but they were pretty good. And we lost a lot of games by under a touchdown. And I always thought in my back of my mind that if we had a full stadium on those games that were really close like that, maybe our defense would have had a big stop and the other team would have scored. Maybe if we had those fans, our guys would get that extra boost in the fourth quarter to want to win the game harder. You know what I mean? We had some great games at the stadium before this last 2 years. But anyway, quick commercial break because I'm kind of rambling today. Derek Pools and Landscaping, Derek Harris, 812-318-5530. Giving him a shout out. I'm doing this for free for him. Pool builds, liner install, decks, landscaping, mulching, power washing, painting, tree removal, fence, gutter cleaning services. Give this guy a good checkout. There's his card. It's kind of backwards, I know, but give this guy a shout out. I'm gonna try to get him a little poster on here, I think, and try to help him out. It seems like he's a good young man. Played football at North, like I said. Played for several years for the Cutters organization, which is our semi-pro team here in Bloomington, Indiana. Just a little shout out for Derek Harris. Back at it. I've got like 10 minutes left, and I was really some of the recruits that are coming to town is just unbelievable. Just unbelievable what we got going on right now. And I just absolutely love it that we are getting these kids to come in to look at our program, see what we have coming in, and We have some great players coming in. Probably going to be the highest recruiting class that we have ever had at IU in 2027, I believe. 2026 was a great class. 2027, I expect to be much better. And later on in the weeks above here, we'll be talking about things pertaining to the schedule and stuff. But I wanted to give a shout out to Coach Haynes for winning the top assistant coach in the country for the Broyles Award winner. Congratulations, Coach. And that is a hell of an honor for you and your defensive staff, because without them and the players, you wouldn't have won that award. But congratulations to him and the support staff. Those guys are all great men. I've talked to several of them. So, yeah. Coach Buddha, Coach Ola, Coach Kuntz. Yeah. And I'm forgetting some, I know. But all you guys have done a great job on defense, and the offensive coach Mike Shanahan and his staff have done an excellent job with them. It's good to see that Justin Ellison is going to stay for another year as a graduate assistant, learning how to be a coach and how to be a builder of men for after football. I was trying to think. There was something else I wanted to talk about, but I can't remember right now. But yeah, season tickets. That's one thing I want to talk about. Season tickets are going fast, so it's important that if you're a season ticket holder that have been in this for a long time, you have to jump on this early, because now more than ever, it's gonna be wanting tickets, which is unusual for us because we never had to worry about it. We just call in and get our tickets and be where we want to be, but it's not like that anymore. So season ticket holders, make sure that you get into the varsity club or through your ticket agent or whatever and get your season tickets. Now, there was something else I wanted to talk about. I couldn't think of what it was. Like I said, I can't remember now. Maybe I'll remember it for next week. One thing I wanted to say is that I might be changing it up. I might be going into the afternoon hours going forward on the season, this off season and the regular season. I'm trying to think of a good day to do it. Anybody who's sponsors out there, like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, please. And if there's any sponsors or anything like that that would like to be sponsored on my show and give me some advertising money to advertise your business, please feel free to contact me. And simpsonjason88@gmail.com, and we'll try to get you on here and get you a nice advertising thing going on. If there's any IU media school kids, I would, or even business school kids, any of you that love IU football and would love to come on my show, I would love to have you here in my studio in the local Bloomington area. I've got a pretty nice setup going on down here. Still doing a little construction out in the hallway area in the bathroom, downstairs bathroom, but it's a nice area for us to sit and talk football. I'd love to have IU media student come in here and help me out with the building of the program. And I just wanted to say that. But like and share. And next week I'm gonna have to try to find a topic to talk about, because this time of year there's there's not really much to talk about as a fan standpoint. More as a coaching and recruiting and standpoint like that. But we're getting closer and closer to spring ball, and I can't wait. Go Hoosiers! Please like and share. Like I said 3 times now for this program, IU football, and it'll be going more into depth as the offseason goes on when we get closer to spring ball on the things that we need to see out of the players and coaches coming up. But God bless. Have a great day. Thank you for joining me. It was kind of a different show today than what we're used to, but I wanted to get some things off my chest about IU football. Well, everybody have a good day. God bless. Thank you for coming to my show and watching me rant. Talk to you later.